We welcome you back to CBS Mornings. We have new information on how Brittney Griner is doing in a Russian prison, and we've learned about one of her greatest fears. We spoke with her wife, Cherelle Griner, in an exclusive interview. It's been nearly 8 months since Cherelle last saw Brittney, who she affectionately calls BG. All of her friends call her that. The WNBA All-Star and Olympic gold medalist has been in Russian custody since February. She was sentenced to 9 years in prison after less than a gram of cannabis oil and vape cartridges was found in her luggage at a Moscow airport. Her appeal will be heard by a Russian court later this month. Cherelle Griner fears that if Brittney is not released before then, she may be moved to a labor camp. We went to the Griner home in Phoenix 2 days ago to speak with Cherelle. This is her first interview since Brittney was sentenced in August. Now, as you know, Brittney Griner has been described as unlawfully detained. Cherelle Griner has another word for it.
On his face, it just seems like my wife is a hostage. To know that our government and the foreign government is sitting down and negotiating for her release, she's a hostage.
Cherelle Griner is in the fight of her life to bring her wife Brittney Griner home. A recent meeting at the White House reassured her that President Biden is also fighting for Brittney's release.
I feel as if his own merit, he's doing what he can, but there's another party in this situation, and we also are dealing with the need for Russia to have mercy on BG as well.
What do you believe that it will take to bring her home now?
I feel like at this point, it's gonna take Putin to have that same mindset and say, you know what, Brittney Griner, who came to my country for 7, 8 years and helped my country be recognized through sport, pay taxes in my country, help my country. I'm gonna sit at a table and I'm going to be clear about what I need in return for her release so that we can actually get a meeting of the minds between these two governments.
In February, authorities found 0.7 grams of cannabis oil in Brittney Griner's possession at a Moscow airport.
I have heard so many stories about this exact situation happening with Americans going through Russia, and at the airport they were told, pay a fine and then go on by your day. But because BG is Brittney Griner, I do think that this got really complicated really quickly.
The 6'9" basketball player has a prescription for medical cannabis in her home state, Arizona, for chronic pain. In Russia, no amount of marijuana is legal.
I work in the legal field. I do believe a crime should warrant a punishment.
You should be held accountable.
It must be balanced.
Yeah.
It must be balanced. And that, it tears me to pieces to see that this is not balanced for my wife right now. And so I want people to see that, to see the fact that, like, has she suffered enough? Like, BG has truly suffered beyond her crime already.
Communication between Cherelle and her wife has been very limited. They were not able to talk on the phone until August. That's 6 months after Brittney was arrested. So you were able to hear her voice. You've had 2 phone conversations with her. Share with us what you can about those conversations.
So the first conversation, it was just so delightful just to hear her voice. At that point, I was like, you know what? I think she's okay. We can survive this. The second phone call, the minute I hung up, I think I cried for about 2-3 days straight. I did not get out of my bed. It was the most disturbing phone call I'd ever experienced. And I've known BG 11 years. And so I'm like, that was the most disturbing conversation.
What was disturbing to you?
It was her. Like, you could hear it. Like, you could hear that she was not okay. You know, if you think about just a person suffering and when they have suffered to a max, like, you could hear that, like, she was at the max that day. And I'm like, God. And there was nothing I could do, you know? So I'm sitting there and I'm just like, it was like 30 seconds to 2 minutes of range. We're just sitting on the phone, just literally in tears, just crying. And it's just the most still, I think, moment I've just ever shared with my wife. I didn't have words, because at that point I'm like, I don't know if she has anything left in her tank to continue to wake up every day and be in a place where she has no one.
Cherelle is hoping that a prisoner swap between the United States and Russia will happen before an October 25th appeal hearing. What could happen to Brittney in 2 weeks?
In my brain, I'm like, please, in 2 weeks, have figured this out. But the reality of the situation is that once that hearing is held and the order is finalized, BG's now in the position where she could be moved to a labor camp. And my brain can't even fathom it.
Brittney Griner has been playing professional basketball in Russia since 2014.
When you think of BG and basketball, you're gonna obviously connect the dot back to Russia. I mean, she was excited to go play there.
Cherelle showed us where she keeps some of Brittney's most precious medals. I look at the shelf, though, it really has her 2 worlds. That's Russian MVP.
Correct.
And then you see her gold. So it's her 2 worlds right here in your office.
Like that's her life.
When I look at the news, and I don't know her, of course, and most people who are watching this don't know her, she looks very vulnerable to me in the tape. When you see her, what do you see?
She's not herself. When I see her, she's not herself. I say she's strong because how are you still standing? Like, how are you still alive going through this? But BG's at her absolute weakest moment in life right now. She's very afraid about being left and forgotten in Russia or just completely used to the point of her detriment, because she's like, saying things to me like, my life just don't even matter no more.
Is that what she said to you?
Yeah.
My life doesn't matter?
Like, I feel like my life just doesn't matter. Like, you guys, like, y'all don't see me. Like, y'all don't see the need to get me back home. Am I just nothing? Like, and those are all valid emotions to feel, and I don't have answers for it except the fact that your life matters to me. And I want to get you back home, and I'm going to continue to pray every day that, the people that are the decision makers in this situation will have mercy and will sit down, and they will too see that your life matters and do whatever they can to agree on terms.
That's what we all hope, Cherelle. This week, the White House said that it has a substantial deal on the table right now and urged Russia to consider it or bring a strong counteroffer. Officials are not saying, of course, what that offer is, but it does include, we're told, a potential prisoner swap for Russian arms dealer Victor Bout in exchange for Griner and American Paul Whelan. We haven't forgotten about him either. But, my heart, of course, goes out to Cherelle. Imagine your loved one has been 8 months. You get a 5-minute phone call, a 15-minute phone call that's very arbitrary. They just decide. You don't know when it's coming. You don't know when your next phone call is going to be.
And you hear that she's breaking on the other end of the phone.
Yeah, she's very, very concerned about her mentally. They don't think she's being harmed physically, but they're very concerned about how much longer she can take. And Brittney Griner's, her birthday is October 18th. She'll be 32, and they're all hoping that she will be out by her birthday. But it's very scary because it's so arbitrary.
Yeah, and those notes of despair that Cherelle described, that's very worrying.
Right. It's one thing to be locked up, but then you're locked up abroad. And people are speaking a foreign language. It's all exacerbated by all of these small little layers where the loneliness, anxiety, the fear, the pain.
And she said Brittney didn't even know what was happening. When she was taken into custody, they're speaking Russian. She signs a document. She didn't really know what it was. And when you look at the case, it's the residue from the vape cartridges that I was told, guys, is the size of a raisin.
No, it's not.
So it's not like she had a lot.
It's a non-issue. It's obviously, a political. She is a political pawn in all of this. I hope Cherelle can get a message to her somehow that the world does care and the U.S. does care and people are paying attention.
Well, that's one reason why she wanted to do the interview. Even when I was going to Arizona, they said, "Why are you here to talk about Brittney Griner?" Well, who's that? Someone actually said that to me.
Wow.
It's top of mind for a lot of people, but a lot of people still do not know this name, and they want to keep her name front and center.
And Paul Whelan there as well.
Yes,
Of course. All right.
Exactly right.